The world around us is ever-changing. We are facing development challenges on a global scale. Today, 41 million out of 57 million deaths are attributable to non-communicable diseases. In the Philippines, 5 out of 10 families were deprived of basic education. The Philippines also ranked third in the top 10 countries with the most natural disasters. Women participation in the labor force is less than half at 48%, while male participation is at 77%. The United Nations identified and adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, to address the challenges faced by economies, societies, and the environment. We at ATRAM support the UN and the SDGs by launching the ATRAM Philippine Sustainable Development and Growth Fund. The fund is designed to invest in Philippine companies that score high in terms of the integration of UN SDGs into their operations and strategy. Through this fund, we hope to encourage PSC-listed companies to integrate UN SDGs into their businesses. We must work together to make a world a better place. ATRAM Philippine Sustainable Development and Growth Fund. Invest in a sustainable future together. Invest to thrive. Invest together. For more information, visit www.atram.com.ph.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Therese Anko. I'm an alternatives analyst, and I'll be your host for today. So we all know that identifying the potential for change is a key driver of investment decision making. Thematic investing is driven by the big megatrends, right? The large shifts that take place over long periods of time, defining the world we live in today and that of tomorrow. So I'm so happy you guys are here. Stay tuned as today's webinar will focus on how these shifts influence and create multiple investment opportunities. So if you have any questions, and I know we're already getting questions, you can already send them as early as now. Click on the Q&A button below your screen or somewhere there. So yeah, before we begin, I'd like to let you know that this session will be recorded and that copies will be disseminated as well as posted on all our social media platforms. So don't worry about that. Don't forget to visit our website, atram.com.ph, for more detailed information about all the funds that we offer. It's all there if you want to know how to invest. If you have any friends who you think would like to check out this webinar but can't attend, feel free to share the YouTube replay of the session and visit our YouTube channel, ATRAM Studio, or you can scan the QR code to visit our social media pages or take a picture. It'll be faster. We'd also like to invite you to join ATRAM's official Viber community group, #ATRAMPH community, to stay updated on the latest announcements, advisories, and reminders. So again, you can scan the QR code or visit the link on your screen to get a chance to win ATRAM merchandise. Ew, even I want some. So we'd like this webinar to be as interactive as possible. So again, don't hesitate to send your questions in the Q&A tab all throughout the webinar. Don't worry, we're reading it. We're looking through it. And each question you send is a raffle entry for a chance to win limited ATRAM merchandise. So winners will be announced at the end of the webinar, so make sure to stay until the very end. We'll also be wrapping up with a quick feedback survey after the webinar, so we do hope you share your thoughts with us about our session today and how we can improve our webinar series. You know, we're always listening to what you guys would like to hear, so definitely please message us. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. Let's start. So it is really a privilege and a pleasure to have with us today Allianz Vice President and Senior Channel Sales Manager for Retail Distribution, Jason Lim. Jason is responsible for business development and handling the relationships with banks and business partners in Singapore and Southeast Asia. He joined Allianz Global Investors in 2015 and has more than 15 years of experience in the financial industry since 2006. So let's all welcome Jason. I'm so excited to hear what your report today.
Okay, good morning. All right. Firstly, thank you for the introduction and also for getting Allianz Global Investors to be part of this webinar to share our insights. I'm Jason from Allianz Global Investor, which is one of the top asset managers globally and a strategic partner with ATRAM in the Philippines. Allianz Global Investor has been managing assets for many decades, and our global research platform of portfolio managers and analysts are always on the constant lookout for investment opportunity to add more value for you, our investors. Thematic investing is definitely one approach that is able to unearth those areas with the greatest growth potential. Hence, for today's webinar, I'll be sharing with you the insights on thematic investing and our strategy. The world is changing constantly and rapidly. I guess many of you will definitely agree with me. And many of these long-term trends are reshaping our lives. And in Allianz Global Investor, we have identified four mega trends which everyone can relate closely to. Starting from the top left hand, you see the urbanization, where 70% of the world population is expected to be living in cities by 2050. And then moving on, the next up, technological innovation. We are definitely currently in the tech revolution, and the adoption of technology has been definitely accelerated due to the COVID situation over the past few years. And last, on the bottom right, we have the changing demographic. This is something that we can relate as humans, okay? Aging population and changing lifestyles due to urbanization as the world continues to develop. And rounding up the last megatrend at the bottom left, resource scarcity, which has been heavily impacted by climate change, deforestation, and other forms of environmental damage. So all these mega trends definitely shape and impact how businesses are being run and we consumers to live in the world today or in the future. And of course, this provides huge opportunities for investors to tap onto. However, when we speak of mega trends, they are very broad and definitely have a very long horizons of 20 or even up to 100 or years long. Hence, how can investors tap onto opportunities of these mega trends? It will be via themes and hence the term thematic investing. We definitely think that thematic investing is the way forward in terms of investments, where themes tends to be more structural and powerful in nature with a clear ability to impact the future. Thematic investing aims to identify these themes and their likely beneficiaries and is truly unconstrained, unlike traditional investing, which are classified under regional classification or traditional sectors and thus possibly missing out on some of these opportunities. Also, thematic investing doesn't need to be just limited to a single theme or two. It can actually encompass a wide variety of themes, as you can see from this slide. Thematic investing is simply identifying the winners that are triggered by social, economic, behavior, or even technological shift. Here, you can see an example of our strategy in terms of this that is invested into some of these themes, ranging from the case of digital life, right, which I guess everybody is very familiar. We are using a digital platform right now to talk to you guys. Of course, clean water and land, next generation energy. These are definitely some of these beneficiaries of this fighting against climate change, which I'll share with you later on. And then to even infrastructure or even the pet economy. So one of the key themes that I would really like to start off with today is really the case of artificial intelligence. Okay, and this theme has been in our portfolio since the strategy started in 2016, right? Which then, of course, artificial intelligence capitalized on the technological innovation megatrend. Artificial intelligence has been one of the key beneficiaries from COVID-19 as its adoption has increased exponentially over the past year. And at Allianz Global Investor, we believe artificial intelligence is likely to be the largest driver of innovation and disruption across not just technological industry, but across every industry group for decades to come. The innovation brought by artificial intelligence, or AI in short, is causing a wave of disruption just across every industry and segments that could dramatically alter the structure of each industry profitability, as you can see from this slide. Just as companies like Amazon and Netflix have disrupted the retail and media industry, we are seeing advances in artificial intelligence driving major transformation in areas such as transportations, logistics, healthcare, manufacturing, and many more globally. In fact, just to put a number into perspective, artificial intelligence can contribute up to $15.7 trillion in US dollars to the global economy in 2030. And this compared to the current GDP of the two fastest growing economy of China and India put together. Also, we are seeing more companies adopting cultures or innovations and leveraging artificial intelligence to drive innovations to steer ahead of the competitors in their respective industry. So we believe that these changes will definitely drive meaningful growth for companies that are able to take advantage within their respective industries and to create this long-term shareholder value. Overall, we are still in the very early stage of AI revolutions, artificial revolutions, as you can see here. In the next 10 to 15 years, artificial intelligence could approach this general or super artificial intelligence phase and be as smart or even smarter than humans in most areas. And I would think to just for Marvel fans and Iron Man fans, I think you can relate this even better. It's just like Jarvis helping Tony Stark in Iron Man to make decisions better and more effectively. So with that, I'd like to move on to the next theme that is also closely related to technology and of course the healthcare issues that we have facing right now due to COVID situation. This is health technology. The theme is based on businesses that currently enable the transformation within the healthcare system and business that includes like vaccine developers, those companies that can connect medical results with cloud-based analytics, and also making use of remote diagnosis and monitoring equipment devices such as telemedicine or medical robot technology. So we have definitely seen how COVID has disrupted our life, right? Not just in Singapore, not where I'm based, not just in Philippines, but across the whole world, but also bring out the shortcomings of our healthcare system globally. So not forgetting that also at the same time, due to the aging population and our change in dietary lifestyle, and that's why the term called diabetic has been created as a term or even a pun for obesity and diabetics, which are closely interlinked. So the number of people with diabetics worldwide is projected to be up by more than 50%, by 2045. And this definitely brings about very serious health issue in addition to the current COVID situation. With all this in mind, though really undesirable, there is significant market conditions, market opportunities in the healthcare system where it has been growing at a compound annualized growth rate of about close to 9%, and this is actually stipulated to reach about close to 12 trillion or 11.9 trillion by 2022 next year. So this definitely doesn't stop there in terms of opportunities. It will in fact get bigger in the next 3 to 5 years or even decades to come as healthcare issue becomes more prominent, and this is definitely across the different segments of the healthcare services, medical devices, and even vaccine development as well. Now moving on to the next megatrend, which is something that we can't miss, is really the case of resource scarcity and of course global environmental issues. Global temperatures have been rising as highlighted in the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or in short IPCC report that was released in August, just a few months back, where the world will probably reach or exceed this 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming within just the next 2 decades. And this definitely will create several climate impacts with more droughts, wildfires, and also increasing the intensity of the storms and causing this catastrophic flooding and environmental issues across the whole world. And according to another report issued in 2019, I think believed by the Institute for Economic and Peace, the Philippines is in fact one of the countries that it could be most vulnerable to climate change, where Philippines have experienced about 0.62 degrees Celsius increase in the annual average mean temperature over the past 50 years. And this rate of increase has been much higher than any other countries in the world. So not to scare you guys, but really, I guess global warming and climate change are indeed real. And the warning signs of climate change has been even clearer over the past decade with many of these new emergency topics precedents. And in fact, over the past 5 to 6 years since 2015, as this slide can show, right, environmental issue has highlighted in green and societal issue in red, mainly water crisis, have overtaken economic issues as the highest risk, right, that has been identified by global leaders in the World Economic Forum. So with that, this brings me to another key theme in our portfolio, which is in this case titled Next Generation Energy theme. Given the increasing discussion about climate change, this is a highly topical theme, right? The clean energy revolution that has been increasing visible, and while decarbonization is not a new issue, it has definitely gained considerable tailwind from policymakers and regulators over the recent years. We have seen that there has been concerted efforts towards fighting climate change globally, from US in the sense of Biden's climate plan, to EU, European Union, Green Deal, and to even in Asia, China's carbon neutrality policy. And many other countries globally have also planned to use their pandemic-generated stimulus programs to support climate-friendly initiatives. So, this increasing focus towards fighting climate change will accelerate and will continue to be an even bigger fashion as this determines the existence of us, the human race, in years to come. So, through this next generation energy theme, the strategy invests in enablers of cleaner and more renewable energy companies, which includes battery technology, renewable power generation, energy saving, and even hydrogen technology companies. Climate change has also accelerated the water issue, right? Where the water cycle patterns have been increasingly unreliable, with extreme droughts affecting many parts of the world. And of course, rising sea levels that impact the salinity of water resources. So from irresponsible extraction to water pollution, and of course, effects of climate change, water problems are worsening. Water is the basis of life and often taken for granted by humans. So other than for our own human consumption, which is definitely something that we need to survive, it is also crucial for agriculture and food production. And not just that, industrial processes and power generation. Thus, the lack of adequate access to safe water has definitely implications not only on humans, but also environmental as well as economic impact. So this brings me to the next theme, whereby in terms of water infrastructure, right, which can be something that is definitely one thing that we look into. Other than that, the water efficiency and quality are three dimensions along with water infrastructure supply, okay, which forms that investment are necessary to address the growing supply and demand water gap. This pandemic has once again underlined how important adequate water supply is. Alongside decarbonization, the water sector is in a pipeline of green action plans worldwide. Another key topic that we have in this theme is basically waste management and sanitation, right? Whereby you see urbanization and demographic changes lead to an increase in waste and also causing serious harm to the environment and the human well-being. So waste management includes efficient waste collection, all right, sorting out and processing, and these are definitely much more important, okay, for minimizing the impact of all these unavoidable waste on our environment and society. Hence, this theme of clean water and land not only encompass companies that improve water supply, water quality, or efficiency, but also companies that improve recycling and waste disposal. So with this, I hope that I've given you some highlights on thematic investing and showcase some of our themes in our portfolio that can be worth noting. Hope this can give you a good perspective on the opportunities in thematic investing and our strategy. And as a summary, thematic investing is really about investing in the world ahead and unearthing its huge investment opportunities. With that, thank you for your kind attention.
So much, Jason, for that insightful discussion on thematic investing. I definitely learned a lot, and right with the four megatrends: urbanization, technological innovation, demographic and social change, resource scarcity, which is right climate change. Super interesting. I really like the part where we have to watch out for clean water and land, and how at the end of the day, it'll actually give us attractive returns. So I really enjoyed that. And now to give us an overview of the ATRAM Global Equity Opportunity Feeder Fund that is invested in the Allianz thematic fund that distills the megatrends to 5 to 7 working themes to stay ahead of the curve. We have ATRAM's product development manager, DJ De Jesus, as a product development manager. So DJ identifies potential new product opportunities to continue ATRAM's legacy of innovation. Hi, DJ, the floor is yours.
Hello, Therese, and thank you for the introduction. And of course, thank you to Jason for gracing us with his presence and providing insights on the investment themes people can capitalize today. And we are very lucky that all these themes and more are available via the ATRAM Global Equity Opportunity Feeder Fund. The fund is a global equity fund focused on thematic investing. This makes the fund the first global multi-thematic fund here in the Philippines. And since June 7, we have a Philippine peso unit class for this fund. You heard it right. This lets you invest into these exciting themes using your pesos. This fund is perfect for the aggressive investor, especially someone who does not really know what theme to invest in. We have launched, multiple thematic funds in the past, but if you don't know which one to pick, let this fund decide for you. The fund is also perfect for those with a long-term investment horizon, someone who's willing to sacrifice short to medium-term losses for the prospects of handsome returns in the long term. The objective of anyone investing into this fund should really be growing your money. What this fund does is find the stories within the 4 megatrends that were mentioned by Jason: urbanization, technological innovation, resource scarcity, and social and demographic change. Those 4 megatrends, if you look at how long they will be prevalent, it could be around 20 to 100 years. But you could narrow those themes down to shorten the time horizon to around 5 to 20 years. And if you choose the right companies and choose the right stories, this would shorten it further to 2 to 5 years. And that's perfect for that long-term horizon investing perspective. The themes of the fund today hit the various megatrends. You have urbanization and technological innovation being the one of the more prevalent megatrends that you could see within the overall themes. And the fund currently invests into water and waste, health tech, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, digital life, pet economy, and next generation energy, some of which were already discussed by Jason. The biggest themes in the fund today are digital life, next generation energy, clean water and land, and infrastructure, right? You must be familiar with the digital life theme if you're already invested into either the Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund or the Global Financials Feeder Fund. The theme spans things like digital personal finance, social media, digital advertising, esports, and cybersecurity. The next one is, of course, clean water and land, which has been discussed very well by Jason, but also it really addresses the need for sustainability. Clean water and land look at the water infrastructure, water efficiency, and modern waste management, ensuring that we're able to reach the water demand of the global population and not create too much waste. And given the capital expenditure on the energy transition, next generation energy, the fourth theme, fourth largest, is also important given that, we're seeing a lot of changes within the overall environment. So wind farms and lithium producers are the hot ticket items right now. So this is a perfect complement to having the local SDG fund as well. We also have the health tech space, and that's a growing space from biotechnology, surgical health, telehealth, which a lot of people are using right now, and of course, DNA treatment. And lastly, the third largest theme, which is infrastructure, addresses the aging infrastructure and even the most developed cities and the need to refresh these infrastructures. Biden's infrastructure plan is not only focused on roads and tollways and bridges, but also on sustainability and the overall energy transition, which hits both themes very squarely. With the fund being fully supportive of megatrends such as demographic and social change and resource scarcity. And with themes like clean water and land and next generation energy. The fund is an Article 8 fund under the SFDR. And all this means is that the fund promotes environmental and social characteristics. The fund also goes under Allianz's overall climate engagement strategy, which promotes a low carbon economy. This makes this fund the first global ESG fund in the Philippine market as well. So we have the first global multi-thematic fund and the first global ESG fund. And I think the performance should also speak for itself. By understanding the different shifts in the needs of the globe, the fund continues to perform regularly in the top quartile. And since inception, the target fund has provided for 132.15% in peso terms, and that's roughly 19% year on year for the past years. And since the launch of our peso class, the fund has provided a handsome 8.25%. But remember that while past performance does not guarantee future performance, the target fund has shown consistency in delivering good returns. So invest in the fund that allows you access to these megatrends. Invest in the ATRAM Global Equity Opportunity Feeder Fund. The peso unit class is already currently available on Seedbox for as low as 1,000 pesos. We're very happy to really provide you with funds like these. The fund manager and the fund can really act as your personal portfolio manager. So you don't need to have the work of really thinking which theme would you really invest in. All you need to do is save and invest. And with that, I turn the floor over to Therese so we could answer your questions.
So much, DJ. Definitely learned a lot about the fund, and that's my favorite part, the Q&A. So for Jason, I just had a couple of questions. Your role on talking about thematic investing is so interesting, but there has been debates, right? Like, is a single theme or multiple theme investing? Can they provide which one can provide better return potential? So any insight on this?
Yes, thanks to Therese, and thanks for the question. I guess it's always very interesting in terms of this, whether it's investors, should they put all their eggs into one basket, or they should actually have put some of them into different baskets in terms of that. So I think in terms of thematic investing, definitely that will also be relatable. Okay, I guess again, highlighting the fact that some investors out there who had this interpretation that in fact a single theme can potentially create more investment returns. I guess it does work. Okay, sometimes. Okay, the keyword here is sometimes. Why so? Is because it comes only when you know which team, all right, and you have been able to identify which team. And of course, another thing that has something to do with is with regards to the timing. So the timing of this buying into this team is one big thing. So again, but overall, I guess the hit rate is definitely relatively low. Sometimes it could also be slightly better off than striking lottery. But again, just jokes aside, I think when it comes to talking about thematic investing, I think it really doesn't need to be singled down to a team, right? It can actually be across various teams, all right? In fact, when we look at teams, right, we do want to invest into teams that are able to have that kind of structural, and not just structure in terms of nature, that is able to have a long-term sustainable lifespan, but also at the same time, they will be able to have that kind of powerful investment opportunities, right? So let's say I shared earlier on with regards to clean energy. Okay, we talk about clean water as well, which is something that a lot of people take for granted. So these are some of the things that we do look out for, because these are something that we again identify that it does really provides that kind of not just a long-term structure, but of course at the same time there is a huge investment opportunities, as these are not just something that is being advocated for short term. In fact, you can see that these two teams in particular, or even many of our teams like digitalization, has also been strongly advocated by not just the governments across the whole world, but also many of the businesses and investors across the whole world.
Right. Thank you so much. That was a really great answer. So single theme for maybe if you're really knowledgeable, maybe multiple theme if you kind of wanna dip your toes in different themes. For DJ, what do you see as some of the growth opportunities for the local markets? Right, Jason talked about things in general, but let's ground it a bit and talk about the local market. How do you feel about that?
Well, a lot of the things that are applicable globally are also applicable to our local market. But I think
Yeah.
focus currently, like where we are right now, speaking in themes, the biggest theme locally would really be the reopening theme, especially since we're moving from level 4 to level 3 soon. The recent market rally finally has some legs because of this reopening, right? And we also have higher vaccination rates. And in fact, the NCR would likely lead in terms of the vaccination rates because we do have a higher vaccination rate in NCR as compared to the overall nationwide rate. The winners during our reopening are usually the battered sectors during lockdown. So property, consumer retail, and of course QSRs or quick service restaurants. Those are the ones that are likely to benefit. An easy way to get broad exposure to the reopening theme is also through the conglomerates, which is something that's very unique to the Philippines. Other themes that are globally relevant, such as technological innovation, are still going to grow at a robust pace. And a lot of what we've adopted during the pandemic are likely to stick. So fixed broadband, logistics, and fintech through telcos are still looking very promising. Tactically, you might want to look at some of the consumer staples that would benefit from election spending. However, year-on-year growth will look relatively weak for that particular sector because of their high base last year. And banks might lag a bit, but once the market sees a reopening economy, the price could move ahead. The last ones to move likely are going to be the airlines, maybe further down to H22 or first half of 2023. But as usual, through one of our funds, what you want to do is to really choose quality names because what you want to do is have the capacity to participate in the recovery.
Right. So really, so many companies now are opening up. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
For Jason, in addition to those you shared earlier, the 4 themes you shared earlier, there are other themes in the portfolio, right? I think DJ mentioned a couple. Would you be able to share more themes on some of that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking the question. I think definitely I would be love to. Maybe what I can do is just give me a while that I can share the screen.
Yeah, that'll be great.
This is one big theme that is in the portfolio as mentioned by DJ and earlier by me, that also encompasses the case of the artificial intelligence and also at the same time the health technology part. I guess in the bigger scheme of theme in terms of this is really the digital life. So digital life in this instance not just consists of the other 2 themes of AI and of course health tech. There in terms of certain overlap, but we do also see that in terms of digital finance. I think fintech is one big thing that we have been talking about right now. And of course, at the same time, e-commerce, I think with COVID situation, we can also see the supply chain disruption is also due to many people are buying online. I guess I'm guilty of that. In terms of that, yes. Right, so that's one thing that we have been we see that that's going to continue. In fact, in the recent ASEAN report that has been done survey, we do also see that e-commerce is going to stay here for long, and in fact, it's going to have an increasing rate in terms of being adoption. Other than that, I think we do also see that in terms of e-gaming. So I think e-gaming is one big thing that has been coming up across the whole world. And lastly, the other two aspects is definitely remote working from home. I guess due to the COVID situation, we all now are using this remote working platform to really connect with you guys in terms of the investors. And of course, with all this encompassing, we need to talk about cybersecurity. I think definitely this is a very key thing that has been always taken for granted. I think we have also seen that yesterday the the G20s coming through in terms of looking in terms of the cybersecurity initiative. All right, so other than this one theme, okay, there's also infrastructure, which is something that is also very relatable to many of this clean energy, and of course, even cybersecurity, because this is something that we have incepted, I think, earlier part of this year, okay, identifying after the Biden's infrastructure plan, not just talking in terms of the traditional infrastructure of roads, railways, bridges, but also at the same time, the 5G network, the case of the data centers and many aspects. So in fact, this team has done very well for us, okay, across the last 9 months since start of the year. Okay, when we first initiated into it, because we do see that there has been a very strong focus in terms of this infrastructure, right? And many of these companies that we invest in this team, they benefit from that. I guess another interesting topic, theme that I would like to relate, I'm not sure how many of our Philippines investors do have pets, okay, but this is one of the team. Oh, DJ has pets. All right. So the thing is that this is one thing that we have been in our portfolio for the longest time. Okay, I guess this is something that is very relatable because, again, talking about demographic, where we talk about social changes, aging population, even urbanization. Okay, why so? It's because when we move to the cities, certain couples do want to set up to have kids. They decided to have pets. Okay, and of course, when old folks, their children live for the cities, okay, they need companionship, all right, so they have pets in terms of that. So we have seen that a rising number of pets, and of course, not just within the case of the millennials, but also some of these silver ages as well. And when we talk about pet spending, it is really exponential, because the thing is that in terms of pets, we are now not just looking in terms of what we see in Snoopy, all right, we are in fact treating a lot of the pets like Garfield. We really feed them so well than us, all right, in terms of this. And not just in terms of food, but healthcare, talking about that, even insurance. Okay, pet insurance is another big topic that we have in this team in this instant. And also just to put some numbers into perspective, all right, you can see that this is where the CAC ratio, the compounded annual growth rate, okay, in fact, for a pet economy, we are talking about close to 5% on a compounded annual growth rate, okay, by 2025, and this was over the course of the last 10 years. Even last year during COVID situation, in fact, we have seen more spending on pet itself, right? So this is something that we do see a lot of huge potential in terms of this. So hopefully with these three teams that I quickly mentioned, this give you more insights in terms of some of these teams that we have identified in our strategy.
Right. Wow, that's so cool. I'm so amazed with the pet economy. I know some of our analysts and directors just bought pets, and you can see them going around in our Zoom. Thank you so much for that.
You're
Being
welcome.
noisy
so-
in Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. So DJ, I'm also wondering, how do I invest in the ATRAM Global Equity Opportunity Feeder Fund?
How would you invest in the ATRAM Global Equity Opportunity Feeder Fund? I mentioned this already, but for everyone who's just tuned in, the fund is available via Seedbox and in Philippine pesos for as low as 1,000 pesos. So just open your Seedbox account and invest through there.
But it's not available yet through GCash, and I guess we're just wondering, like, when will it be available on GCash? Because I think there are 5 funds on there, but not this one.
We are currently under negotiations with GCash.
Okay.
GCash is a third party, and of course, it's their decision to choose which funds. But safe to say that they are eyeing this fund, so hopefully we get it on their platform.
Yes, GCash, if you're listening, please. We want it on there already. Okay. So a question for Jason. How do you see the markets will be affected with the expected tapering moves of the Fed? Yeah, actually, they've been quite vocal recently.
Yeah, I guess yesterday's, in terms of the release of the FOMC minutes, it has really confirmed that probably tapering will come through probably in next month, in November, or even in December itself,
Wow.
right? I guess this has been really widely publicized by the Fed since probably 3 months ago. I guess yesterday's minutes really does confirm. But I guess before I answer the question, all right, I think why we have to look in terms of why does Fed needs to taper. I guess because of COVID situation, they have been in this quantitative easing, I think maybe 4.0 or 5.0 already since over the course of the years. And with this tapering, they have to reduce down in terms of their monthly purchasing of the US Treasury and of course the mortgage-backed securities to tighten some of this policy liquidity out in the market. And the reason why doing so is really whereby the economy, the US economy is coming back, right? In fact, we are looking at about close to about 6.7 as of end September, right, in terms of this growth rate. And yesterday's consumer price index, which came in extremely high, I would say 5.4, to showcase inflation is really coming through, right? Again, reinforce this. Okay, I guess how does then tapering this affect in terms of the equity market, right? I guess in terms of the equity markets, in fact, tends to do well, right? If you were to take a look in terms of just looking in terms of this tapering and then moving on to the rate hike cycles, it tends to be that using S&P 500 US equities index as a gauge, we tend to see that it tends to have gain about close to 9.5% in the first 12 months into the first rate hike. So after tapering, and we are going to see that probably the rate hike is going to come through mid next year or even second half of next year, that is when you see that right now is really one in the first 12 months. And S&P has historically showcased over the 4 rate hike cycles since the 1990s that it has been on average about 9.5% gaining into the 12 months into the first rate hike. But not just that, in fact, after the first rate hike, okay, you have seen that also historically, on average, S&P 500 has given about close to 26%. Right, over the 4 rate hike cycles since 1990s. So again, this spells well for the equity market because the economy is recovering, and that's why Fed needs to tighten some of this monetary policy that they have been pumping in since last year. Right, so this is something that we do see that it is overall a good positive for the equity markets. In terms of the bond markets wise, I think probably the one that's going to be impacted will be more towards the US Treasury and the mortgage-backed security as they scale back in terms of some of this purchasing program.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. So many variables moving. Okay, we'll definitely watch out for those things. But moving forward, with the pandemic recovery, a lot of things are changing. The pandemic changed a lot of things. So just wondering how thematic investing is vulnerable to, the fast-paced changing of the global markets, right? Do you think it is vulnerable to these fast-paced changes? And what are the strategies to keep up with it? What are the strategies to make it sustainable?
I guess for us, again, it really boils down to identifying the correct teams. And just now I did mention during my first answer that sometimes choosing one single team might not be the best solution, and especially in terms of the timing. So this is something that, again, for us, when we do our due diligence and we do our research, we need to identify the correct teams that are able to have that kind of not just structural. What I structure means that they are going to last at least for the next 3 to 5 years. At least that's the bare minimum. And of course, it is strongly advocated by the certain agencies or even globally, right? And of course, the other one aspect that is really talking about is if you have actually seen some of our portfolio, right, in terms of team allocation, we did rotate out some of these older teams where we came to new teams. So the newest team on the block is really infrastructure, which I highlighted that we incepted earlier part of this year, which has done tremendously well for us, along with the clean water and the clean energy team, right? So right towards the case of identifying teams, and I think this is definitely one of the key risks as a risk manager, as an investment manager that we look out for when it comes to talking about thematic investing. Why so is because teams really move through stages. And in fact, for us, we really want to determine which part of this team, right, which cycle, whereby this team is currently right now. And of course, we look at some of these macroeconomic, some of these even regulatory triggers, or even events, or even any of these innovations, I would say some of these new developments coming through that can actually reinforce where the team is in terms of this cycle. And of course, not just buying into teams, I think exiting is one key thing, as I mentioned earlier on, where older teams peak. So again, when we look at that, we look at in terms of some of these decision makers, whereby there's a lack of willingness to allocate increasing attention or even monies to that. So that's where we actually rotate out from that perspective. I think one key team that we have rotated out just last year and was very nicely before the whole educational scandal from China itself is this educational team. Last year during the COVID situation, in fact, in March last year, we went to the educational team, buying into some of these educational platforms, and then we see that it was a very short-lived team. In fact, because the thing is that we saw that there was some regulatory changes and regulatory developments that happens at the end of the year globally, and that's why we decided to really exit from this team. So this is one thing that again I want to highlight about the key risk management. So again, back to the first question, all right, where you can see where the timing. I think there's a lot of due diligence that one needs to take before buying into the correct team at the correct time. So if the investors do not have any of these resources or even time to look in terms of that, I think definitely leave it to us, the investment manager, a professional that we look at it on a day-to-day basis, all right, to really understand the whole world and understand where the team is and which part of the life cycle it is.
Right. Yeah, that's super important. Timing
Yep.
is very important. I agree. So from aside from the pandemic that's affecting our global funds today, like what are the other factors that may affect the increase or decrease of these types of strategies? I know you already touched on the education. I was wondering, is there more that you've seen so far?
Sorry, when you mean increase and decrease, meaning, sorry?
Increase the types of strategies, like what affects the funds? I guess the themes that will maybe decrease the yield or increase the yield of the funds.
I guess back to the point about in terms of the cycle, okay, and in terms
Right.
of whether the stakeholders has been able to willingly put more money. I think for us, digital life was something that we have identified probably since 3 years back, all right, even before the pre-COVID. But of course, increasingly over the last 1 year, we see that the adoption of digital technology, right, and tools, digital tools, I think as exemplified by ATRAM and of course in Allianz Global Investors, all right, we have been a very big, both of us have been actually a very big advocates of fintech, financial technology. So this is something that we have actually, in terms of digitalization, has increased our exposure to that, right? As well as decrease on the other end, example of decrease is really what I had highlighted in terms of educational, where we rotated out just last year. Though it's really a short-lived team that we bought into within a less than 3 years timeline that we have actually started. It's really because of the regulatory. So that's also something that we look out for, right? Not just in terms of China, what I say, but also globally. And of course, there's a shifting in terms of what, because the whole basis of online education back then was really more towards the case of digital, one thing, but of course, accelerated by COVID. But then with the back to school by many of these developed nations, in particular for US, we then decided that it probably is time to take some profit off from some of these companies and reduce the team. And then of course, with the China regulations having some noises way back in last year, we already have seen that, because through our global research, we then decided not to pursue this team anymore. And that's one thing that we decided to exit from this team.
Right. Oh, okay. So who decides on the companies to be invested? Like who in Allianz or something like that?
We have a big team, all right, which is the thematic equity team, right? That is actually stipulated. That is, and of course, they tap onto the global research platform. So in fact, for us, not just the research analysts that is spanning about close to a few hundred of them across the whole world, right? Whereby we contribute ideas through this so-called chatter, all right? That we actually communicate in terms of ideas, but we also debate about which company let's say in this instance, if we talk about digital companies, which e-commerce company is worth investing into, All right, so there's a lot of debates going through in terms of that. I think not just that in terms of the global research, we also have another unit called the grassroots research. These are third party, so they do a very interesting job. What they do is they do not go to the companies. The companies are the one that the company meetings are actually done by the analysts and also the portfolio managers there globally. What the grassroots research do is they go down to the rest of the others like customers of the companies. Let's just take, for example, in terms of pharmaceutical companies or dental equipments, right? We actually ask the dentists, we ask the dental patients through the grassroots research to identify whether the trend of all this is in place, right? Before then, this helps to reinforce some of this research that we do have. And then we will decide to buy into the companies, whether they do so or not. Yeah. So it's really quite an extensive and in-depth research that we've done on globally before we buy into the companies that fits into the team.
That's so great. Definitely quality research. That's something else. I guess almost last few questions. For Jason, I wanted to ask us, what are the overlaps among the 4 themes mentioned? Like, I guess how are they all related to each other? Like, what's the goal with the 4 themes?
When you mean the 4 themes, are you referring to the one of the artificial intelligence, the health technology, the clean water, and the clean energy?
Yes.
Okay, there could be definitely a certain overlap, as I mentioned just now earlier on, also at the same time with regards to digital life. Okay, so if you will talk about digital life, of course, artificial intelligence forms a part, and of course, health tech also slightly overlap in terms of this. But again, I would say that it is definitely not 100% overlap. Okay, in fact, if you talk about, let's say, for example, clean water, right? I don't think that there's much in terms of the digital companies that falls into that. But of course, if the companies do fall into that definitely better, because that will be basically means that they fulfill into one or more teams that we have identified, right? And definitely there's going to be even stronger conviction into these companies, because probably they have used artificial intelligence technology to improve in terms of their water management. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason. I
No
really
problem.
enjoyed all your answers. Last question for DJ. What is the advantage of investing in this fund versus other ATRAM equity funds? Like, what makes this
Well,
fund
I think what makes this very different from all the other ATRAM equity funds is it gives you broad global exposure as compared to maybe investing into a certain region or investing into a certain theme. And as a product manager and really developing these products, we could only go so much to be able to be ahead of the curve, which we want to be able to do here in ATRAM, and really bring out new themes and new products to really have the market really invest. So we were first with the global technology theme here in the market, and all of the market players started following suit as well. And the benefit of having this fund is that it already looks ahead of the curve and make sure what themes really are going to be the next big things in the market. And I think that's the advantage of being able to invest into this particular fund. They know when to exit and when to enter certain themes to be able to maximize the overall current environment and really the changing landscape, as mentioned by Jason and as asked by our viewers.
Yeah, great. That's so great. Thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have now for questions. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I learned so much. So before we wrap up, any last words, Jason, DJ, who wants to go first?
I guess maybe
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, DJ. All right. I guess for us, really, I just want to really reinforce about thematic investing. I think thematic investing is really investing for the future. Right. This is something that I guess for us, we definitely have form alignment. And thematic investing is really identify powerful and structural themes. So I did mention about infrastructure. We talk about digitalization. We talk about innovations, and even to the climate change initiative like clean water, clean energy. right? And all this actually definitely forms very aligned to the United Nations SDG goals, right? And of course, all these themes, not just in terms of doing good for the environment and the society, I think it also at the same time, right, enable a growing market of investors to really make the money work harder while doing good for the society and environment. So with that, I think I'll just pass it over to TJ. Thank you.
Yeah, my last words is we have a really good fund that's able to capture all these themes, and really see the future and really invest into all these long-term themes that will be out. And we're actually very privileged to have, Allianz with us. And we thank you, Jason, and thank you, Allianz, for supporting this webinar. And also thank you for everyone who's supporting this webinar as well.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Once again, thank you so much, Jason and DJ. Wow. And thank you, of course, our audience for staying this long. I know you guys are hungry, but we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We hope you were able to gain insights and key takeaways from today's webinar. I know I learned so much about thematic investing, and it's really investing about the future and realizing these gains from it, that they are available to you. Right? You just go to atram.com.ph, you go to Seedbox, and you'll be able to invest just like that. So ATRAM has a wide range of investment products, and our capabilities span across several asset classes meant to service the different investment objectives of each individual. So, with these, it was with great pride that we announced that ATRAM has recently achieved 9 industry awards. We have the best local fund house in the Philippines, given by Asian Investor, the fastest growing fund management in the company in the Philippines, given by the Global Banking and Finance Awards, and by the Global Economics Awards, the most innovative mutual fund offerings, again by the Global Economics Awards, the best investment solution provider from World Business Outlook, and the most innovative asset management company from Pan Finance Awards. We'd also like to add that ATRAM Group and ATRAM Wealth received the editor's triple star from the Asset AAA Sustainable Investing Awards and the AAA Private Capital Awards, respectively, for integrating ESG, or environmental, social, and corporate governance, in our investment process. So, last but not the least, our ATRAM Total Return Bond Fund has been recognized by the CFA Society Philippines as the best managed fund of the year of the ATRAM Total Return Peso Bond Fund Medium Term FVPL Valuation category. So definitely, we are trusted. We are multi-awarded. So for today's session, we hope we have assisted you to #take on tomorrow by investing your hard-earned money with an award-winning fund house. And again, as you guys already know, that for as low as 1,000 pesos, you can already jumpstart your investment journey with Seedbox. So here's how you can invest in the ATRAM funds.
Hello. To open an account with ATRAM, just visit our website at www.atram.com.ph. Here, you can learn more about all the funds and services that we offer. Our site will then guide you to our online investment platform, Seedbox, where you can start investing for just 1,000 pesos. But if you have more questions, visit the website's Frequently Asked Questions page, or ATRAM Academy page. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much. Again, just visit atram.com.ph. It'll lead you to Seedbox, and you can invest in the fund right there. Please stay tuned for our next episode of ATRAM Friday Conversations, live via ATRAM's official Facebook page and YouTube channel tomorrow. So that's Friday, October 15 at 7 p.m. So please scan the QR code, take a picture, found on your screen for our official Facebook and YouTube account. Again, if you have any friends who you think would like this webinar but are unable to attend, feel free to share the YouTube replay of this session. Visit our YouTube channel, ATRAM Studios, scan the QR code to visit our official social media pages. So we'd like you to invite you to ATRAM's official Viber community group, #ATRAMPH community, to stay updated on the latest announcements, advisories, and reminders. We want you to be the best educated investors that you can be. So please, it would be so great if you could join us. Scan the QR code or visit this link found on your screen and get the chance to win more ATRAM merchandise. So lastly, if you could all just answer the survey at the end of this webinar, we'd love to know your thoughts on today's topic. Really, please, we are always listening to you guys. On behalf of everyone at ATRAM, thank you again for your attendance and participation. We wish you and your loved ones continued health and safety. Have a great day. Thank you so much.